Hello and welcome back. My name is Caitlin. I'm a knitter living in New England, and this is where I share about my projects, what I'm working on, what I'm thinking about, and what's important to me in my knitting. So thanks for being here. I think we'll dive right in with what I'm wearing, which is also my first big finished object for today. This is the Twigs sweater by Junko Okamoto. If you watched my last episode, you're going to hear a lot about it. But this is actually knitted in the recommended yarn, which is a discontinued yarn brand called Moeke yarns, which was a Romanian wool, a company that was helmed by a Romanian woman living in the Netherlands. So the name of the yarn brand is a Dutch word. But this is knitted in, the background color is the Moeke yarns Heritage, and then the white contrast color is Elena, which is their single ply Tsigaie wool. It's done. I'm thrilled. If you saw the last episode, I was really hoping to finish this in time for our trip to Romania, where my husband is from. It was going to be early spring and perfect weather for sweaters, so I was really excited about finishing it. And I made it. I'm really happy with the finished object. I think it's stunning, honestly. It's really a showstopper. It was a marathon, it was a journey, but yeah, I love how it came out. It's really light, it's pretty warm. This is a sport weight, but knitted on 2.75 millimeter needle, so the fabric is a bit dense, but I find it easy to wear. I do like how the fit came out. I was hoping that this would actually end up having more of a unisex fit, but because the neckline is a little bit higher, it has a hard time. It sort of technically fits my husband, but it's harder for the yoke to get around his shoulders. So on me, it's a little bit oversized. This pattern only comes in one size, unfortunately, although you could definitely play around with your gauge and your yarn to adjust the sizes a little bit. And I also made some modifications. So I adjusted the length of the body and of the arms. On the body, you can see I just added a little bit more color work down here. It's about 5 centimeters on the body. And then on the arms, instead of doing a balloon sleeve like is in the pattern, I just kept the color work going the whole way. I just repeated the patterns from up here down here. There are a lot of people who've made modifications to this pattern online, and a lot of them wanted to keep this sort of feature of the sweater, which is that in the original pattern, every color work band is a different pattern. And I was kind of worried that if I didn't do that, because I was worried I wouldn't have the time or the mental brain space to do that, it might bother me, but it doesn't at all. I think it still looks beautiful. So there are a few decreases in the sleeve, but it is effectively a straight sleeve, I would say. And then the cuff is just a 3x3 rib, which is the same as the hem, and it doesn't have that cinched in balloon sleeve with the decreases here. So I'm really happy with this. I'm really glad that it's done. You may recall that last episode I was talking quite a bit about the yarn and what a shame it is that it's not available anymore. Foreshadowing for a later chapter of this episode. We'll get there. So I just have one more finished object, which is sort of very different from this one, but also akin to it a way, because I talked a little bit also in my last episode about my resolution to use European or New England yarns this year. And this next finished object is made of a very, very local yarn to me, which is the Solstice DK from the company Plum Woolen yarns. I picked this up at the New England Fiber Festival, which was a couple of weekends ago in downtown Boston. It was a really beautiful day, a nice trip down to downtown. And I just picked up one skein of their Solstice DK, which they describe as a light DK. And I made it into this scarf, which is the Pave scarf by Yuka Tomioka. So, which is a pattern that came out quite recently on Ravelry. And I'm pretty happy with it. I sort of debated. I knew I wanted to make a scarf out of this yarn. I only had one skein, first of all. And it's also a really beautifully drapey, silky yarn. So the yarn is 90% Romney from a flock in Western Massachusetts and 10% Mohair. It's a loose 2 ply. So I'll put a picture of the skein up, but it's very drapey. It is very, yeah, the plies are pretty loosely twisted around each other. I think it would be perfect for a lace shawl, but I just don't really enjoy knitting lace. I did try another scarf pattern called the Pumila scarf, which I thought looked really beautiful before I settled on this one. And first of all, I just thought that on the needle size, the yarn wasn't working out quite the way I wanted to, but also I just thought it'd be a bit of a slog to get through having to follow the chart all the time. So while this is technically lace, it was memorizable, and once I memorized it, it was pretty smooth sailing, honestly. And I really like it. The yarn is really special. It was really fun to work with. First of all, so it's very, very local to me. It's also naturally dyed. So this is the color Logwood and Iron, which is the plant, and then there's probably a technical dyeing name for this, but like the modifier that they use for the color. And so it's this really beautiful muted purple color. You can see the texture of the scarf up there a little bit better. So I think it's perfect. It's super, super drapey. It's perfect for scarves. I think it'd be gorgeous for shawls, for lace, if that's what you like knitting. And they also recommend it for summer tops, which I actually think could work really well, depending on your climate. So I'm really happy with it. I'm so glad I had gotten to try it, because I wanted to try Bloom yarns for a long, long time. But I just hadn't had the chance to look at any of them in person. I would love to use their yarns again. It's hard. I really love this one. The knitting experience was so nice. I just don't know what else I would use it for besides a scarf. Given the twist, given the drape, maybe a summer top, but given the number of skeins I would need, it just feels a little expensive to me for that. I don't know. I'll have to think about it. But I think if you are someone who really loves lace knitting, like, this would be beautiful for you. And I really enjoyed working with it. It was just a real pleasure to work with. For me, there is a sort of mohair-y halo, but it's next to skin soft for me. I can wear it around my neck. And it's really special, and I really enjoyed working with it. Okay, on to whips. So I think I will start with a sort of boring update on my Melange sweater Man, which I also put in the last episode. This is just kind of chugging along. I've finished the yoke now. I've just connected in the round. So this is knitted in Knitting for Olive Merino and their soft silk mohair, both in the color Plum Clay. So I think we're having some muted purple themes going on here. But yeah, this is connected in the round right now. I'll just be knitting and knitting on it for a while. It's a great contrast to my next whip, which I'll talk about in just a second. And I'm excited to have this done. This is for my husband, so I think he's really gonna enjoy having it. And yeah, I'm enjoying working on it. I always enjoy working with the Knitting for Olive, and I'm just gonna keep chugging away. And one of the reasons it's really nice to have just a plain stockinette project right now is that my other whip, which I talked about the yarn for this in the last episode, is the Agnete Cardigan. You can hear my needles there. The Agnete Cardigan by PetiteKnit. And I had sort of had a vision for this as soon as I saw the pattern come out, which was about 2 years ago. I wanted to make it in a light blue color, and I just sort of hadn't gotten around to it, / hadn't felt entirely comfortable enough to attempt it yet. And I am so far really thrilled with how it's turning out, and I'm really enjoying working on it. So I have finished the back yoke and then one side of the front right now. So I just picked up for the other side of the front. This is an all over brioche drop shoulder cardigan with a double knitted button band that you knit at the same time. I'm knitting it in 2 yarns from Sandnes Garn. One is Sunday and the other is Alpakka Følgetråd, which are both in the color Arctic Ice, which is just this really, really beautiful pale blue. Some in different lights. Sometimes it looks a little darker, sometimes it looks a little lighter. The fabric as it's coming out is really, really beautiful. It has that alpaca-y halo. I find it really, really soft. It looks gorgeous in the double knitting, and my gauge seems to be about right. So I'm just enjoying working on this so much. I really like working double knitting. I know not everybody does, but I find it super satisfying, and brioche is really similar to that for me. In a way, the sort of physical motions of brioche and double knitting are similar, actually. And it's just incredibly satisfying to watch the fabric work up. It's a little slow, right? Because every row that you see is actually 2 rows that you knit, but it's just, I don't find myself getting tired of it. And I'm really excited to keep working on it. I think it's, if you've done some brioche before, you have an idea of increasing and decreasing in brioche. You can basically read your stitches in brioche, right? So you can tell if you drop a yarn over or something like that. I just think this is the perfect combination of like just challenging enough that it's engaging, but not so mentally intensive that it's really, that it can be really, really frustrating. And I'm just really happy to have a project like that on my needles. I think potentially just looking ahead in the pattern, the most challenging part of this will likely be the, well, it might be the body, because you have to knit in the double knitted buttonholes while you're knitting the body. So I'll just need to do a little bit of math on that and, you know, keep careful track of your rows and things like that. But I just think it's going to be incredibly satisfying. I think it's, I love like the integrated button band, because then when you're done, you're done. And I'll probably do the sleeves last, and then it'll just be really straightforward from there. So I love this. I'm really enjoying working on it. And it's a sort of perfect counterpart to the Melange sweater. Okay, those are my works in progress. Just 2 sweaters going on right now, but I have some plans for more, because while we were in Romania, I also picked up some yarn. So I've got sort of two big categories of yarn. I talked a little bit earlier about the yarn from this, which is this Tsigaie wool spun in Romania, and last episode I had been foreshadowing, unintentionally foreshadowing, talking about what a shame it was that it wasn't accessible anymore. So when we planned this trip to Romania, I went on what I thought was probably going to be a wild goose chase on the internet, trying to find if there was anywhere that you could buy wool from Romanian sheep spun in Romania, and there are places. However, where I finally ended up getting this wool, the internet presence incredibly minimal. All they have is a Facebook page that they update occasionally. I messaged them on Facebook, not sure if I was going to get a response, but they were actually super responsive and let me know where to come to check out the yarn and pick it up. Very informal. I suspect there's probably more mills and dyers out there like this in Romania, but they just operate through word of mouth or WhatsApp groups, and not through, you know, having a robust internet presence, because there's no real need for them to. So after doing a little bit of hunting and bringing along my husband to this small town outside of Cluj, we picked up some yarn that is Tsigaie wool spun in Romania and dyed by these same people who we were buying the wool from. And I'm just thrilled. I hope, you know, the mill stays open and we can keep going back in the future and buying more wool. It was just really exciting to have that opportunity. And I think we came at the sort of the endish of the season, before they're shearing the sheep again and processing the wool. So there weren't a ton of colors to choose from, but I am absolutely thrilled with what we picked out, and I have some ideas for what it's going to be. So I'll just show you the different colors that we got, and then talk a little bit about what I think my plans might be. I think these are probably all for next fall and winter. Warm weather is coming, and I think I probably, yeah, this might just not be the next thing I want to work on. I have a couple of things that are coming up next that I'll show you too in a second. But I think these will be really great options for the fall and winter. So I got 2 sweater quantities. One is for a sweater for me, and it's a combination of this natural white and this bright red, which is like a very classic color combination that's really reminiscent of some traditional Eastern European embroidery. So this would be the main color and this one for the contrast color. And my original idea for this yarn was the Elena pullover by Junko Okamoto, which again is designed, these are very, very similar to the Moeke heritage. I wonder if potentially they were spun in the same mill or with very, very similar equipment. Oh, sorry, the Moeke Elena and heritage. This is a single ply, sport-ish weight. And so the Elena pullover is designed exactly for that yarn. It'd be super simple to use. And her sample is in these similar colors and uses these sort of traditionally inspired motifs. I think it's a beautiful, beautiful garment. But I guess I just wasn't confident that it was a garment that I would get a lot of wear out of. I think it's stunning and would be a really sort of beautiful heirloom piece, but I feel like this one for me really beautifully treads that line between something that's like really beautifully crafted and unusual, but is also something that you can wear daily, or at least is a useful garment in different contexts. And I just wasn't sure that the Elena would be that for me. So I think, obviously there's a lot of time to change my mind or to keep doing some research, but I think what I may do with these is the Bifurca pullover by Teti Lutsak. It's a similar sort of vibe, similar overall look, similar construction. Again, Teti Lutsak is a Ukrainian designer, so it has those Eastern European inspired motifs, but just the construction and fit of the sweater, also comes in multiple sizes, is, I think, gonna be more wearable for me. And I've never knit anything from Teti Lutsak, and I would be really excited about trying one for patterns. So I think that's my current plan for these. I think we'll see. And then the other sweater quantity that I got is for my husband. It's this beautiful sort of muted clayish, reddish pink. I have not decided what to do with this. He may want a color work sweater, so I might pair this with this natural color. I also have one skein of a very, very dark red that could look really cool, I think. So I need to have a little bit of a thing for this about both the construction of the sweater and what the motif would be, and then sort of hunt around for a pattern. I might have to put some things together. I might have to design something myself because I do want it to have a really nice fit on him. Again, like this circular yoke was just not a great fit. I think there are circular yokes for men that would be. I would just need to like look at the numbers and his measurements and things like that. So either a drop shoulder colorwork sweater or maybe a circular yoke that has a little bit of a nicer fit. So we'll see. Again, I've got plenty of time, but that's the idea. That's the idea for this too, which I'm excited about. And then there's a lot of yarn this episode. The other yarn that I picked up in Romania is sort of more traditional, you know, commercial hand knitting yarn, which I picked up from a store in Cluj called Erika. Gorgeous store, lots of beautiful fibers for knitting and crochet. They also have macrame, they have some fabrics as well. Great European brand, and also a lot of interesting plant-based fibers, really cool blends from different European brands. So like blends with silk or bamboo or cotton and different constructions that you don't necessarily see that often in the US. So if you happen to be in Cluj, I really do recommend checking them out. And the owner was so lovely. The owner of the yarn store was just really, really, really lovely and helpful to us. So I picked up a couple of sweater quantities again. One of them, again, is for my husband. So this is a really cool yarn. I got a sweater quantity of this Lana Gatto VIP. It's reflective. You might not be able to see it that well there. Which is 80% merino. It's an Italian company. It's made in Italy. It's 80% merino, 20% cashmere. So it's like a lovely, soft, beautiful, heavy fingering weight. So it's like 200 meters per 50 grams. This is the color Periwinkle 9361, and just this really stunning, like bluish purple. A lot of purple this episode, but there'll be a lot of light blue too. That's coming up in just a second. And so I'm not 100% sure. I have favorited some patterns. I've been, you know, looking around a bit for patterns for this yarn, but I'm not 100% sure what I'm going to use it for yet. But it's going to be a cardigan. That's what he asked for. It's going to be a cardigan for my husband. I think this might be really nice to work on during the summer because it's fingering weight, it's a little lighter, it's super soft and lovely, so you don't have that sort of sticky wool feeling, but that's on deck. And then I got a sort of half sweater quantity for myself of something that I hope will be my next project. Depends, you know, what things are coming down the pipe, but what I hope will be my next project after the Melange sweater and the Agnete cardigan, which is a pattern that I saw, I think, initially on Instagram and just couldn't get out of my head. And it's called the Mila's blouse by a small Norwegian pattern company called Mila. And it's designed for 1 strand of mohair and 1 strand of lace weight alpaca. And this sweater, shirt, blouse, it's stunningly beautiful. I love the details. I was really just intrigued by the idea of knitting something like this. It's got all those really cool details, the bit of lace, the button band, the double folded hems, right? It's got a really interesting fit. I just think it would be really cool. I mean, much like the Agnete cardigan, it just seemed like it would just hit that right balance of being challenging, engaging, but not frustrating or insurmountable. And so it just totally captured my imagination. And even though it's not on Ravelry, there aren't that many projects it's hard to find information about. So, you know, it's very possible I could run into unforeseen problems with it. Although I have bought the pattern and looked over the pattern, and so far it looks okay just on initial glance. But I was just totally captivated by it and I had to knit it. There's one huge caveat about this pattern, which is that the button band, or the sort of detail on the button band, is crocheted. I cannot crochet anything more than a chain. I don't know anything about crochet. Crochet is frightening to me. I feel like there's no boundaries, at least with knitting. You've got your stitches on your needles. Crochet, you can do anything. So I am going to need to practice a little bit, and hopefully I can pull it off for that crochet edging. And if not, I'm sure I can figure something out and either replicate the edging in some way or replace it with something else. We'll see. So maybe I'll learn a new skill or maybe I'll just figure something out on my own. Anyway, I picked up the sort of fluffy strand. It's not a mohair, but essentially a mohair for this blouse also at Eureka. So this is the Setasuri from Lana Grossa, which is another Italian yarn brand. And this is a Suri alpaca silk, which is actually a kind of yarn that I've never used before and I am really interested in using. And one of the things that, this one in particular is 69% alpaca and 31% silk. So a little bit of a higher silk content than some mohairs out there. And this one really interested me because a lot of Suri silks are a little bit heavier than mohairs and don't quite have the yardage. And this has 212 meters per 25 grams. So it's exactly the same as a standard mohair, like the Knitting for Olive soft silk mohair. And I love the color. I just thought the color was really beautiful. This will come as no surprise, probably, if you've looked at some of my other projects. But I just thought it was stunning and I really wanted to pick it up. So I picked up 5 of these, which is what my size calls for in the pattern. And then I had to find a lace weight to pair with it. So the original pattern calls for a lace weight alpaca. And I did look at a bunch of them, trying to find the right color. And once I had kind of gone through the options, it was pretty clear to me that if I was going to use a lace weight alpaca, it would end up being the exact same one that I'm using for my Agnete cardigan. So, because I have this with me, I probably would have just paired these two together again. And I wasn't super enthusiastic about doing that. I mean, I do go back to the same yarns over and over, but to use the exact same yarn, the exact same color, so close to the first project just wasn't that thrilling to me. And also because this already is Suri alpaca, I just was wondering maybe there's something more interesting that I could do. So I did a bit of research. Originally I was wondering if maybe I could find like a lace weight mohair silk blend. I thought that could be really cool and really interesting for a garment like this. I considered for a while maybe doing a fingering weight instead, but that would essentially be, so this is like a fingering and a mohair on 4mm needles. and it's just the blouse is not really designed for such an opaque fabric. So I decided to stick with the lace weight. And what I actually ended up going for was a lace weight cashmere from Color Mart. I just happened to be browsing around on there one day, and they had a lace weight cashmere. It's a cone for a 2200 meters, something like that, on a cone. And in the perfect baby blue color. And so I ordered it. It's got about twice as much on the cone as I actually need. It hasn't come yet, but I will show it to you when it comes. It hasn't come yet, but I figure I can use about half the cone for this project, and then I'll have 1100 meters of cashmere left for something, so I can hold it double. If I want to do maybe a hat and gloves or something like that, I could hold it as a lace weight strand with a mohair in some kind of, in an upcoming sweater or something like that, which would be so cool. I was this close to buying the Gapard cashmere lace for this, which would have been super, super similar. And which I'm really interested in, and it just turned out that the Color Mart ended up being wildly cheaper. Even with shipping, it was about $50 for 150 grams of cashmere, which is about half as expensive as ordering the Gapard. Although the Gapard actually is really affordable for, I mean, for the yardage, it's something like 350 meters per ball, whereas the Knitting for Olive lace weight cashmere, I think, is maybe half that, if that. So I'm excited. I'll let you know when it gets here. Hopefully it should be a little bit soon. It has shipped, so we shall see. But that's the plan. So I'll put this with the lace weight cashmere, and fingers crossed I can make it through the pattern and make it through the crochet, and we shall see. So that's pretty much it for my acquisitions and plans. I just had one update to my potential new knitting plans, which is on the subject of Romanian wool and panicking about not getting it anymore. I talked a little bit in my last podcast about this yarn, which is the Moeke Yarns Heritage in the variegated colorway, and that I wasn't sure what I wanted to do with it. And I think I now have an idea. You might have seen this. I feel like it's popped up on my Instagram quite a bit, and it was probably also quite high up on Ravelry. But Rosa Pomar just came out with this sweater called the Sheep Sweater. And first of all, it's just visually stunning. I think it's beautiful, but I loved her reasoning behind her design of the colorwork sweater, which was to make a colorwork design, a colorwork motif of sheep that looked like the Portuguese heritage breed sheep that they use for the Rosa Pomar wool. And not a sort of cartoon sheep, but a real sheep. And I just thought it could potentially be really perfect. One, because I think this highly variegated yarn in color work could end up looking really nice. It's also natural color, so if I use it for the sheep, I think it's the color of a sheep. And the sheep, the sort of sheep motif that she has in the Portuguese sheep reminded me a lot of the Romanian sheep. So that is now my tentative plan for this bowl. I will need to find a background color, and I think something like a very, very dark brown, because this does have the sort of grayish brown. It's exactly this color of variegation. A super, super dark brown. Maybe also a natural sheep color. I mean, I'm thinking potentially of just using the dark brown in the Rosa Pomar yarn that she used. But again, we've got time to get there. But I love the sweater as soon as I saw it. I think it could potentially be really great for this yarn. And just as a concept, as a design, it's really, really exciting. So I'm looking forward to that. Okay, I think that's it for today. Thanks so much for joining me, and I'll see you in the next one.